Kenny's nothing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 16 of the Chicago Rinkcast. I'm your host, Andy Campbell. Welcome. Glad to have you here. I am here with Sean Fitzgerald and the Bardo. The three of us here tonight, we're doing a lightning round, a quicker podcast than usual, to comment on the recent news of the Chicago Blackhawks hiring Kyle Davidson as their permanent fixture as general manager moving forward. He's shedding the interim tag. He's staying with the group, and he's going to be running the show as he has been so far. And we're going to break it down. Before we do, quick shout to our sponsor, Puck Hockey, PUCKHCKY.com in all caps. Hey, use the discount code. It's the Rink. It's in all caps. The Rink. 10% off. And a $100 purchase gets you a free t-shirt. Anyway, go check out the gear. It's good stuff. Sean, how we doing tonight?
What's Great.
Up? Good.
Oh, today's swag, Melancholy Infinite Sadness from Smashing Pumpkins, 2-disc set. My favorite song, probably 1979.
That's a good one.
Is probably my favorite. And then a Colorado Rockies 2018 spring training hat. I will be attending a wedding in Colorado, so I had to get the little Colorado Rockies swag before out there. I already have a Rockies hat, but it's not as cool as this one.
Awesome. Love it. And, considering your shirt, is that some sort of Chicago band ode to the state of the Hawks?
Yeah, it is actually.
Is there significance, or is it just
it is actually. Okay. It is actually a little ode to the Hawks. But once we start here, or once we get into it, I will make that reference.
Yeah, love it. And Mr. Bard, how are we doing tonight, my friend? How are you? Welcome back.
Dawn of a new day. How's it going?
Dawn of a new day. It sure is. And on that topic, dawn of a new day, dawn of a new Blackhawk era, or maybe same. I don't know. We don't really know. The Blackhawks stayed internal. They put on quite the show and brought in a lot of candidates. They demonstrated that they were really working on this hard or hardly working. We'll never know. At the same time, names like Mathieu Darche and Eric Tulsky and even Peter Chiarelli into the fold, as well as rumors of former Cubs people coming over, all sorts of things for their vacant general manager spot. And who do they go with? They go with the interim candidate, the person who has been there, Kyle Davidson, 33 years young. Congratulations, Kyle. And good luck, buddy, huh? You were kind of dealt a really tough hand here by your predecessor. Stan Bowman certainly stacked the chips against you moving forward here. At the same time, maybe there's something to like about this. Maybe there's something to be skeptical about it. And Bard, what do you like about this? What do you think as far as, let's think positively. Let's get away from Sean's t-shirt for a few minutes here and go back positive vibes.
Let's go back 24 hours ago when the announcement pretty much came down, and I was not surprised that he was named GM. I'm on record on this podcast. Go back to the recordings where I said that Kyle was going to get the job. That was my prediction. And I just feel like it was they were grooming him for that, and they made him the interim GM. They got his feet wet, etc. So now he gets the interim tag removed, and now he's the guy. So today certainly was a little bit of a show. To say that he and use a little cliche, he certainly won the press conference, as they always say. But look, he said a lot of the right things, and a lot of things that Blackhawk fans may not want to hear, but probably need to hear, is that it's going to be a long rebuild. He's not putting a timetable on it. He used that dreaded R word, rebuild, which I see as a positive, because this team needs to do that. For those who listened to the podcast or watched it online or on TV, you heard a lot of subtle shots made towards Stan Bowman in terms of sticking with the plan and not deviating from it. Will that be reality? I hope so. They said it with very much, with conviction that it was going to be the plan that they were going to stick with. They were going to have to make a lot of tough decisions.
Yeah.
I thought the comments that he made about Kane and Taves being aware of the situation and what's going to be happening and what the plan is was very interesting. He did not say that we're sticking with them and keeping them. He did not commit to them, which I think is a positive. I know that might, turn a lot of people off, and especially, people who want to buy tickets, because who are they going to come see? But, at this point, it's really about collecting assets. They need to trade what they can at the deadline. They need to acquire draft picks and young prospects. To date right now, I mean, Kyle has done a pretty good job in terms of handling Rockford. He hasn't force fed Lucas Reichel into the NHL. He's let a lot of these other kids marinate down there, kids like Ian Mitchell. And look, I mean, the other thing I thought was interesting was some of the subtle shots that he made towards Colleton. I mean, we all remember that he was the one that pulled the plug on Colleton. He talked about Derek King as an elite communicator, something that Colleton was the direct opposite of. So, I mean, to me, there's a lot to like about what you heard.
Yeah.
The question is, will it come through, and will the plan come to fruition sooner or later?
Yeah, excellent points. I mean, he's been there. I like what you've said, particularly about the Rockford piece. And you're seeing some of those assets come up from Rockford and actually fare pretty well in NHL games, where if they were thrown into the fire, if you threw Alec Regula in too early, maybe he would not be playing as well.
Yep.
A few others. Reichel's not ready yet, and he's demonstrated that. And they said, okay, back down.
Yep.
And that's it. Let's keep working on you. So those things I do like a lot. And I do like that he hasn't committed to Kane and Taves. And I do like that he did use the R word. He said rebuild. He said it's happening. What happens in the conversations with Kane and Taves after that is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and the one thing you did hear them directly say is that we're not going to state a plan and then, veer off the highway or whatever they said. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but yeah.
No, that's right on. Yeah.
That's basically what they were saying. And that's a shot at Stan Bowman, who basically was saying that he was going to rebuild. And then all of a sudden they acquire, a 37-year-old goaltender or a defenseman in his prime and sign him to an 8-year contract. So those aren't moves you make if you're rebuilding. So
yeah. And I like Jacob. Jacob, thank you for writing in. Jacob Prow. I do apologize if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, but as he writes, agreed. We wanted the Hawks. We'll pop it on up there. Thank you, Jacob. Agreed. We wanted the Hawks to publicly commit to a rebuild for years. I'm slightly optimistic the trade deadline. I don't get the pure hatred of Davidson. I don't either. Let's give the guy a shot. Let's see what he can do.
Exactly. I think the hatred. Look, I'll be the first to admit I wanted some fresh thinking and fresh blood right out, from outside the organization. But, to that point, there's a lot of people out there that are, smarter than me and have more insight than I do that are outside the organization that say Kyle is not Stan Bowman. Don't get that twisted. And look, no one knows if he's going to be a good GM or not. No one knows. So we just have to give him a chance and see what happens.
Yeah. And to Jacob's point, a few weeks ago, before they said we're about to start this huge hiring process, people were more or less saying, let's see what this kid can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of them. And I keep wavering back and forth because that's what fans do. We talk out of every side of our mouth. That's just, that's how it works. But Jacob, thank you for writing that point in, and it's cool. And to his point, this is who we've got. This is who we're rolling with. And we should all be rooting for him. We totally should be. Now, let's move on to Sean's shirt. Sean, you wore that shirt for a reason.
I did.
Are you nervous about all this? You nervous?
I am.
About Kyle?
I am. I'm really nervous about it. The Bard said one of the positives was they used the term rebuild. Stan Bowman said 2 years ago they were going to rebuild, and they literally trimmed some stuff off the periphery, brought in 3 goaltenders, and then the next year they abandoned ship. So until they consistently rebuild for more than 1 year, I'm not sold on that.
Okay.
Also, after watching the Office episode where Michael lists off his pros and cons for dating Jan, I came up with some cons for Kyle Davidson.
Okay.
One, he worked under Stan Bowman. That's the only general manager he's worked under. He may have his own ideas how things run, but he's only seen the one guy. the other candidates, especially your guy, Matthew Darsh, has played and worked in different organizations. Kyle Davidson's only worked in one organization, so he only knows how one organization runs.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
2, Rocky Wirtz was involved in the hiring. And in my general manager layout and stuff, I said if Rocky Wirtz was involved in the hiring, it was bad news. I didn't like that he was involved. If Danny Wirtz is truly the CEO, they should have just told Rocky, this is the guy, meet him, we're going that way. So I didn't like that Rocky Wirtz was involved in the evaluation process.
Yeah.
3, it's the Wirtz family. We've heard this all before. It's the same song and dance we've heard before. Like, we're going to rebuild. It's not about the money. It's not about the money. We're about winning. And then Papa Wirtz didn't have him on TV forever. And then Rocky, as soon as somebody gives him a touch question in the town hall, he lashed out. Yep. So I don't really trust what they're saying in that regard.
Okay.
He's only 33 years old. I'm assuming, I'm going to speak for myself here, I'm above the age of 33. At 33, I was not ready to run a NHL hockey organization. I don't care. I wasn't even ready to be the manager of where I worked. And I'd been there for 8 or 9 years. Like, I don't know if he's ready to be the guy and run the entire organization. There's 3. And then, I had, salary cap. So Danny Wirtz made sure to say that Kyle Davidson has been uniquely familiar, become their salary cap expert in the organization. If he was the salary cap expert, why did they acquire Tyler Johnson, whose contract is going to be an albatross? And why did they give Seth Jones that horrible contract that's going to be hanging around their neck for years to come, worse than the Brent Seabrook deal? If he is such the salary cap expert, he should have pleaded. I know he wasn't calling the shots, and ultimately it was his prior boss's job, but he should have been screaming from the rooftops, throwing printers that contract shouldn't have been given out. So those are just some of the big cons I take away. And I personally, like Bart said, I think they missed the boat on getting a fresh perspective, and if they're trying to get away from the Kyle Beach turmoil and everything like that. I understand Kyle Davidson wasn't here when it happened, but he was here during the aftermath.
Right.
So he still got that little bit of taint on him in that regard.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. What if he was responsible, if that was his role, being responsible for the cap and things like that.
Yikes.
We're in this position and he played a role in that, then we got serious problems ahead.
Yeah. Well, here's the counter to that, though. We also learned, I think, during the press conference today, it's sort of, to me, it convinced us how big of an ego, or how big the egos were of Stan Bowman and probably to a degree Jeremy Colliton. But Stan Bowman especially. I mean, it seemed like it was his ship, and whatever anybody else said in terms of opinions or perspective didn't matter. If he wanted to do it, you were going to do it. And
then why did here's my counter to that then, because I'm still playing the devil. Why did the Wirtz family then promote him to president of hockey operations? Like, he was just the general manager and they gave him a promotion, even though the ship was clearly going down. And he wasn't listening to anybody else. It was his show. Yeah. And they gave him a promotion.
I think
who knows?
I think part of that is also because I don't know if the Wirtz family. I mean, if you look at this is a little bit of a counter to my whole argument, is that, the fact that they didn't go outside the organization and they kept continuity and they kept somebody in there. I don't know if they really wanted to go outside the organization ever. So to me, and that's why,
might have never been their intention.
Yeah, and that
they put on a dog and pony show and a little wag the dog for us. And
I agree.
I guess
the only other thing I'll also say, one more thing in terms of, Kyle's experience being with one organization. There are examples out there in sports like Brian Cashman, who have really only been with one organization. I know baseball is completely different, but, he went from intern, worked his way up, had a lot of success. And I know, look, the Yankees have unlimited amount of funds. It's different in hockey, but it is possible to be successful having been with one organization. I think the big key though is who he's going to surround himself with.
Right. Yep. And hopefully I almost wanted to say Stan Bowman. That's wrong. Because I'm being the devil and being negative. So I immediately regurgitate Stan Bowman. Hopefully the plan doesn't turn into the Philadelphia 76ers, the process.
Yes.
So
right. Well, and I don't, it could be that it could be another one of the Hawks thing saying, all right, we know we've got someone we can control. We know he's been around. And again, that is the devil on the shoulder comment. What I'm hoping happened, and this is maybe wishful thinking, but I hope that Kyle came to them because he was being interviewed in the process too. And he said, look, I've been looking at these numbers for months and months and months. I think I might know a way out of this. Saying this would be my plan to rebuild, and this is who we have to move, and this is what we need to acquire, and this is how we do this. And we don't know what the other candidates came with if they had that depth of knowledge, because this is a serious hole that the Hawks are in. This is going to take a while.
Oh yeah, and that's sort of the sense that I got from some of Danny's Wirtz's comments is that this kid is very proactive and forward thinking. He's not sitting there reacting. He's more proactive.
Right.
So, I mean, I like that about him. Yeah. Now, if they start to say to him, hey, we're not going to do it this way, we're not going to do it this way, he's going to walk out. He's a smart kid, it seems like, he's no dummy. He's not going to just take it because, it's the Chicago Blackhawks and it's one of 32 GM titles in the world. He'll walk right out. He doesn't give a crap.
Right.
And
I don't worry about the age thing, Shawnee, as much. I mean, Theo Epstein was a month shy of his 29th birthday when the Red Sox hired him.
Hey, I didn't want to make a Cubs reference, but yes,
I went the baseball route here, so it's on me. It's everyone. I did that. Sean did not do that. I did that.
I went to basketball before I went to baseball.
Yeah, no, but the age thing doesn't bother me. I think we're learning from our country's leadership that we need to go younger. So. And that's not a knock on Biden. That's a knock on all politicians right now. At any rate, so I don't know. I'm not as bugged about this hire as I originally thought I would be, because I think when they opened up the search, knowing that someone was going to come in and possibly be running the show with weeks before the trade deadline, 4 weeks or so, and was just going to plop into a chair and be like, whoa, what are we doing here? Versus someone who's been there all season. I still like that. I guess the other question I want to pose is, now there's a hockey rumor going around saying that Marc-Andre Fleury wants to stay put. So if we're rebuilding here, say Marc-Andre Fleury's, they do right by him. So now the word is that Marc-Andre Fleury was promised when he came to Chicago. Promised by who? I don't know. Maybe the guy who's not there anymore, Stan Bowman.
Right.
Promised well, don't worry. You're going to come here and we won't screw this up. We'll do right by you. I don't really, I love Marc-Andre Fleury, but I really hope they don't make an emotional decision on him and say, you know what, Stan promised you or someone else promised you, so we're not going to move you. When, as Gordon Gekko said in Wall Street, if you need a friend, get a dog. So thoughts on Marc-Andre Fleury and now the possibility of him actually sticking around? Bard.
I still don't think it's going to happen. I think, you're going to hear all sorts of rumors and different things. You're probably going to hear a Kane rumor again and a Taves rumor before it's all said and done. But right now, there is no commitment to anybody in this organization right now from a player perspective. You've heard that loud and clear today. I think it's really going to come down to whether or not Fleury is willing to waive his no trade clause and go to a team and for a shot at another ring and to further cement his legacy. I just don't think staying here and playing in empty buildings for the next couple of months, I don't think he wants to do that. He only has to go somewhere for essentially 2 to 3 months, depending on their playoff run. And then he can go figure out what he wants to do with his family, whether it's, stay in Chicago long-term or move back to Vegas, whatever the case may be. I just think it's going to come down to, and maybe who knows, it may be the fact that somebody put that rumor out there as a way to maybe get teams to up their offer or something like that. I mean, that's, we see agents do that all the time. So again, I still think he's going to be dealt. I think he'll agree to something in terms of some place to go, whether it's back to Vegas or whatever. Okay. I don't see him sticking here for the final few months. It's a team. And look, quite honestly, if this team has a vision of being in a rebuild, what does that say about a veteran like Marc-Andre Fleury if he is not willing to sort of, I know he owes nothing to the organization, but, for the future of this, organization, I guess. And I guess looking at it from just a hockey perspective, the NHL is better when the Blackhawks are good. We saw it for a decade. Sure. So it's like, wouldn't you want that rebuild to happen because you're an asset? So, I just think it's going to happen. I don't buy any of these rumors. I think it's going to happen.
Yep. Shawnee, he's got 10 teams he can say absolutely no to. Will the Hawks find the other ones, the right ones, and do this thing?
So I echo Bard's statement, and I hope they do trade him. But if it's out there, and let's say Marc-Andre Fleury comes out and said he doesn't want to be traded, then they're damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Right.
They're damned if they do, because now down the line, prospective free agents or somebody who don't get into a movement clause but are under the wink handshake agreement that they're not going to be dealt, could be dealt. So that kind of destroys Kyle Davidson's credibility with future free agents and agents and negotiating.
I don't know.
I especially, you don't want to get a reputation like the Chicago Bulls had, where their front office was not respected. Nobody wanted to come here because of them. So you don't want to get that reputation early on. Mm-hmm. However, if they do not trade him, they are setting themselves so far back on the rebuild. Because aside from Brandon Hagel, Marc-Andre Fleury is the best asset that you have no long-term, he's the best one-year asset you have. He's better than Dominique Kubalik, better than Calvin DeHaan, Dylan Strome. Marc-Andre Fleury is that chip where you don't sacrifice anything long-term to move. And he's the best one you've got. So they have to do it. If Kyle Davidson was really committed to what he said about, we're going to rebuild and it's going to be 3 to 5 years, you've got to acquire lottery tickets. Like Eric Andrews said on last week's pod, Stash said it, Eric Andrews put it in his article, asset management is immensely huge for Kyle Davidson going forward.
Yeah, I don't think that Kyle Davidson would damage his reputation if he moved him in kind of the damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. If he owns it. If he just says, look, hey, I didn't acquire him.
Right.
And so we
could put that on stand.
We need to rebuild, and I'm going to move him. I mean, certainly, if anyone, it probably got backlash more for moving him last year. It was Vegas, and they're fine. They regrouped and got Eichel. But so I think, first of all, 100%, they got to move him no matter what. I mean, you have to do it. And you need to gamble with moving him and facing any backlash of him saying publicly, I can't believe they traded me. I didn't want them to, versus saying, look, we had an agreement with that. We were going to talk to him about this. And if he didn't want to get traded, regardless of what's down there contractually, that we were just going to keep him. I think that'd be a worse thing than the alternative.
See, I think that rumor out there that we saw today almost creates a little bit of a groundswell of a market to be created.
Could be
where teams can
be a plant.
Say, you know what? We need a goaltender. Let's up our price a little bit. If we're only offering a third, we'll offer a second. Yeah. That could be what it is. But quite frankly, I agree with you, Andy. I don't think the his reputation is going to be on the meaning Kyle's reputation is going to be on the line with this. He's got to move him. And I think, look, it's an asset that he never actually acquired in the beginning. And look, quite frankly, does Marc-Andre Fleury have the power to say, I don't want to go anywhere? He does, but I think he would look foolish more than anything. The Blackhawks made it clear they want to rebuild. They need the assets.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, he's got to go.
Yeah, and I don't, we could go on and on and on about Brandon Hagel as well, being the most marketable trade chip for the Blackhawks right now. But if the GM publicly comes out and says, we are rebuilding, this may take 3 to 5 years, as he did state.
Multiple times.
You can't hold on to Brandon Hagel.
No.
You cannot say that and then not trade Brandon Hagel. I'm sorry.
Well, he said everything that you want, that you need in a rebuild. He said we have to look at and rebuild our asset pool, whether it's draft picks, prospects. He didn't want to put a timetable even. He said it may take 3-5 years, but he didn't even want to put a timetable on a rebuild. No. He knows that this thing is going to be ugly before it gets pretty.
Well, and who knows? I mean, I don't, at what point even, this is blasphemy in a lot of Blackhawk circles, maybe including some at the rink, and thank God Ray isn't on right now. But Alex DeBrincat, does he want to sit around for 5 years? I don't know.
Yeah, see,
who knows? I mean, he's at the top of his game.
Mm-hmm.
And I posed a couple shows ago about possibly moving Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah.
I think I was given a death stare by somebody on the way.
Probably one of us. Because but I mean, yeah, everyone.
That's a realistic consideration. But see, here's where if Kyle Davidson said today was true, that he spoke with Jonathan Taves, he spoke with Patrick Kane. They're aware of what's going to happen. So my assumption is that maybe either they let their contracts play out and then they decide, whatever. Alex DeBrincat is going to have to be the face of the organization going forward. Like you're going to have to sell jerseys and get people, whether it's 5,000 people, 4,000 people, whatever it is, to show up and watch this team. And Alex DeBrincat is, if Kane and Taves decide to leave, Alex DeBrincat is the only draw on the current roster. Right. So that's why I think they don't do it. But back to your Brandon Hagel comment, in 3 to 5 years, the way Brandon Hagel plays, like his hard nose in the corners and stuff like that, I mean, they're similar in their style of plays, but Andrew Shaw, how old was Andrew Shaw when he retired? I know Brandon Hagel's not much of a fighter as Andrew Shaw was, but Brandon Hagel's style of play has a shelf life, and it's not as long as he's not going to be like this.
No, I mean, and who knows? I think his longevity might be longer than Shaw's, but you don't know. And again, on a cup competing team, he's a bottom six guy. We've said it over and over again. That's reality. That's fact.
He's 23. He's on a good contract. Like Tyler Toffoli got a huge return. Brandon Hagel should get more than that, or comparable to that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bart. I was gonna say I don't think they're gonna trade DeBrincat, but I would, because quite frankly, I think goal scoring wingers you can find. There's a lot of them out there. Maybe not like him as a 40 goal scorer or whatever he is, but he's not Kane. He's not going to be that kind of a player. Kane is just is a generational talent. Guys like DeBrincat, they're out there. So to me, it's like if you're rebuilding and you could say, I'm going to trade DeBrincat and get an elite 21-year-old young center, I would do it. Or a 20 to 21-year-old elite defensive prospect, I would do it. I would actually trade DeBrincat before I would trade Kirby Dach.
Well, I mean,
100% would.
I mean, DeBrincat's contract is up after next year. Mm-hmm. So, I think this is the other thing that I want Blackhawks fans to chill out on real quick. And Tab Branford sent a tweet out that said, oh, Kyle, good luck, Kyle. You've got a few weeks to prove if you're a GM. Do I think Hagel should be moved at the deadline? Absolutely. Are there going to be things at the deadline that don't happen that we don't like to see? Absolutely to that too. We cannot judge Davidson just based on this trade deadline. This is going to be a busy summer. And so I think a lot more will probably happen this summer than will at the trade deadline.
Andy, I agree. I think you hit it on the head. The trade deadline is just one of his hurdles. It's the trade deadline. It's the draft. It's free agency. Like those are three things the first three hurdles he's got to clear and show some sign of progress for the organization. Like Absolutely. It's just the first step. And if he's going to keep jumping hurdles until eventually we get to the playoff contention again and open lanes, he's got to make sure that he gets clear over those and gets the right, like they kept talking about the right player, the right thing. I don't know what that entails for them, but I'm hoping he has a vision, and I'm hoping it's not smallish defensemen to draft.
Right.
So,
now this trade deadline, DeBrincat, that's not happening.
No.
And I don't think that we should start to look to that. But, because I think that, and who knows, but Davidson might sit down with DeBrincat this summer and be like, you've got one more year left on your deal. Do you want to start negotiating your new contract right now? Or we're ready to start contract negotiations with you. If that doesn't go very well for whatever reason, or if DeBrincat is disgruntled or, because he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild or whatever, then that expedites that possibility. And then it could become very real. You've got, DeBrincat. Oh, I'm sorry. DeBrincat is 23, 24. So he's got one more after the following season. So no, he won't be going anywhere, maybe for a little while, unless it's sometime next season, depending on what they look like before the deadline. At any rate, so, you've got DeBrincat, Kane, and Taves all coming off the books at the same time. Now, DeBrincat is an RFA, so they have leverage with him. That said, at some point, though, the Hawks are going to need to keep a couple decent or heavy contracts around to hit the cap floor. DeBrincat might be one of those if he goes through the rebuild.
Jones
they've got
Jones will be one.
Jones will be one, but you need a couple.
But here's the thing: do they become sort of a Arizona Coyotes where they can, acquire a bad contract and get an asset with it?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. You could.
But let me go back to DeBrincat real quickly. What if in the offseason Colorado calls you and says, we're going to offer you Bowen Byram and a number 1 pick and a first-round pick for DeBrincat? You do it?
I'd ask for more.
Say that one more time.
Bowen Byram and a first-round pick for DeBrincat.
Sure.
100% I do it.
100%. I'd ask for one more prospect in there.
Maybe one more.
I'd ask for
middle prospect, maybe a middle prospect or something like that.
I'd ask for a second-round pick.
Yeah. Well, Jacob's back, fellas. Jacob, welcome back. The Hawks can make a deep run in 5 to 7 years, which might be generous. Could be. Rebuilds, there's no timetable on them. Trade everyone who won't be young and on top of their game in 5 to 7 years. Bang. That's it.
That's really it.
Jacob,
simple.
welcome to the party, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. He's contributing more than sometimes Ray does on the show. I'm kidding, Ray. I'm kidding.
Yeah, if you are going to be past your prime in 5 to 7 years, get him out. Let's go.
Yeah,
he's contributing more than Dominic Kubalik.
Yeah, well, and I hope that the Hawks, if they're balking on Hagel, didn't you learn anything about Dominic Kubalik?
Right.
The guy that everyone thought was completely untouchable 2 years ago, and now they can't trade him for peanuts.
Yeah, and it's bad when Lafferty is playing above Kubalik in lines. Lafferty was on the second line, Kubalik's on the third line. Lafferty can't score. He can do everything else. He can skate real fast. He can go in the corners. Can't score.
Yeah.
So
Kyle Davidson has his work cut out for him. I also think it will be very interesting as the season starts to wind down and the summer approaches. We will start to learn a lot about the fate of the two golden smoothies, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves. And if they will see out the final years of their contracts, or if there are going to be talks about moving them in some sort of packages, will Jonathan Taves even be playing after this year? We've gone over that several times. This might be it for him, sadly.
He's coming back.
What's that?
He's coming back to the ice Thursday. So.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. For how long?
Yeah, King saying cautiously optimistic, according to Ben Pope.
Okay. And then Patrick Kane has a lot of mileage left. And if I'm Patrick Kane, I'm saying, all right, thank you, but it's time. And I'd love one more cup. But I'm not Patrick Kane. None of us are. And as we've said before, it's going to be entirely up to him if he wants to be moved before his contract is up. He has earned that right. And he has IMO, in my opinion. He has earned that. He's given everything to the hacks. So, guys, any final thoughts on Davidson before we declare victory for the evening on a short podcast?
I do think the one thing that's interesting is the comments that he made about Derek King today. It led me to believe that he definitely has a good shot at getting the interim tag, taken off, because quite frankly, who are you hiring on a rebuild?
Right.
I mean, it could be him, but I just don't know how good he is in terms of talent development. That to me is a big question. But look, if they see that the talent is not developing, then they could always make a move. But quite frankly, I think there's a really good chance that Derek King is back.
Well, King's been an AHL coach for a number of years.
Right.
So, I mean, at some point he's had to develop some talent because not all your NHL players go straight from major juniors or college to the NHL. So,
well, I think go ahead, Sean.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And if they're in a rebuild, and maybe it is just a familiarity with, who's in the organization, and who's in the organization. He's familiarity. He understands where their progress is and stuff like that, and he can continue to develop them. He could be your Dennis Savoir-Faire, Dennis Savard before they get good, and then you axe them. Bring in a coach that only wants to win.
I was going to say, yeah, but that's what they did. That's the model. There's really no point in going in a vast coaching search right now if you're committing to a rebuild. I just don't see it. And the players seem to like King, and we'll see what happens there. But should be interesting.
You definitely don't want to go look in the Swedish 2 league for a head coach. That's for sure.
No, probably not. Well, at any rate, folks, thank you so much for joining us on a quick one tonight. But we wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our listeners out there and our thoughts on Kyle Davidson. Kyle Davidson, we're all rooting for you, man. Good luck. Your Blackhawks era. And to Jacob Prow out there, Pro. Jacob Pro, definitely pro tonight. Thank you for your comments and your commentary. Some good stuff, man. Shawnee, anything?
Just looking forward to the trade deadline coming up, and some more good pieces we're going to put out at the rink, and hopefully we'll have some positives to talk about after, or perspective positives to talk about after the deadline.
Absolutely. And for those of you out there, we referenced some of how Kyle Davidson's role is all about asset management. You heard Bardo talking about it, but make sure fans out there that read some of our stuff on the website, Eric Andrews wrote a very good article on his thoughts on Kyle Davidson and asset management in general. Make sure to check that out. And we did just get a note from Jacob that it's pronounced pro. And hell yeah, Jacob, you were pro tonight. Really appreciate it. And on behalf of my colleagues, Andy Campbell, thank you, Bardo. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jacob Pro. Everyone have a great night tonight, and take care. And we'll be back soon. Have a good one.